Hey guys, Jake here. Got another review for you today. Today we're talking about the Streamline Pilot. Uh, the Streamline Pilot came to me um, through a couple of mystery boxes. I ended up getting one in each mystery box. Really had no intention of throwing them because I was very happy with my NVs and proxies at the time. But eventually they did find their way out to the field where I tried them out and was like, all right, they like these. And then I put one in the bag just to use for like second shots, just to, see what it could do on the course, and ended up liking it there as well. And eventually just sort of snowballed into being my primary putter and one of my favorite upshot uh, throwing discs, I guess. Um, so we're going to talk about what makes the pilot today. So we'll start with the numbers. There's two sets of numbers, as I've mentioned before with MVP. A lot of times they do different numbers based on the plastic type. So for Electron, their baseline plastic, the numbers on the Pilot are 2, 5, -1, and 1, which is pretty good. I think the -1 is a little generous from what I've seen on the later, like the newer runs of the Pilot. They seem pretty stable. I would probably maybe make that a -0.5 or something along those lines. The older ones do turn decently, so I think the numbers were accurate for previous runs of the Electron. Um, and then the numbers on the premium ones are 2501, which 100% agree with that. Um, the only number that's maybe something they should tweak on both models would be the glide. The glide is listed as a 5, but honestly, it's one of the glidiest discs I've ever thrown, so I would maybe give it the 6. But I'm not gonna complain too much. The glide number is kind of dumb anyway. It never really tells you a whole lot. So, but yeah, that the numbers for once are are pretty accurate to what I've seen. Um, they're just for a comparison is for throwing power. I've sort of got like a medium arm where I max out about 400 feet of distance with a distance driver, and I will throw the Pilot, if I throw it as hard as I can, right to about 300 feet. That's definitely not what I'm looking to do in like a golf round, but if I go out into a field, that's probably about my max range that I will throw these at. And it's really fun to do that because they just glide forever. Like you just you smash them because they're really slow discs. So you're like, there's no way that this is gonna get there, and then they just keep going and going and going. It's pretty fun to watch. But yeah, normally I would say if I'm throwing a Pilot, like driving with a Pilot, I would probably stick to like 250 um, as a max range that I would even consider it. And honestly, I'm probably not even doing it then. I'll probably stick with the NV, like an Electron NV or something. But it does come out occasionally. Sometimes the shot calls for it. But most of the time, I'm using this as a putter and an approach shot disc. Um, so they offer the Pilot in quite a few different plastics. So they have the Electron, they have Proton, as you can see here, Neutron. I've got this is a cosmic neutron, I think technically, but and they have regular neutron. They have uh, cosmic electron. What else? Oh, plasma. They did a run of plasma. It's not listed as a normal Pilot plastic, but they do exist. And then they have Eclipse as well. They did the Eclipse 1.0 and then a 2.0 prototype. So I assume we'll see the 2.0s sometime in the future because, I mean, honestly, they're one of the most popular discs that the MVP brand makes now. So, yeah, a lot of options, a lot of different stamps, some cool special edition ones. Like this one, for instance, is a Infinite Discs stamp that I got. I have a special edition blue one somewhere. I don't know, lots of cool options. So I'm going to kind of break down my thoughts on the Pilot into the sort of two different categories: the Electron Pilot and the premium pilots, because honestly those are really the two flights you're going to get. I did not see any noticeable difference between any of the premium discs, as well as I didn't really see a massive difference between any of the various Electron runs or plastics. But between those two groups there is a big difference, as the numbers indicate. The premium ones are a bit more overstable than the Electron baseline ones, which you kind of expect from pretty much any disc. So we'll start with the Electron. So the Electron pilots, I got a few of them here. I ended up buying 3 of the most recent run, just to get a feel for the different firmnesses. So I got 3 of them here. This guy is the soft, and then this purplish one is medium, and then this guy is firm. Just because I wanted to compare, because I had different Electrons from different runs, and they're all very different, and they've changed the Electron sort of formula over time. So I thought I should get one of each of a single run, so I can kind of compare and contrast those. But in general, the latest ones that you'll find, the soft ones are soft. They're not like super duper soft, but you know, they're definitely grippy. They definitely have a bit of a bend to them. Yeah, these are my go-to. I love the soft. They don't chunk up too bad. I don't know if you can really see on the camera. Like they get dings and dimples and things like that, but there's really not any like big gouges or anything out of them that I've noticed. Been very happy with them. They still hold up even when they get really warm. They don't get too flexible for me. So the latest runs of the soft Electron I've really liked. And technically these are Cosmic Electron, but the difference between Cosmic and standard Electron is really not anything other than color. So that's the soft. Medium, also great. I really like the feel of the medium as well. It's still grippy, but it does have a little bit less flex. Otherwise, flies exactly the same. It's just really personal preference if you like them soft or if you like them, you know, a little bit more firm and not bendy, but still grippy. Medium's a good way to go. The last one is the actual firm, and I am not a fan of the firm. This stuff is so hard and stiff and like doesn't want to bend, and it doesn't have the same grippiness that the other two have. It's very like almost like premium plastic sort of slickness to it, which that might be your thing if you want a firm hard plastic. These things almost feel like premium discs, so if that's your thing, these would be great. For me personally, I don't like it. I like my baseline to be soft and grippy and pliable. So for me, this is kind of a no-go. I use this for practice putting occasionally, and that's about it. I also noticed that this one, I don't know if it's common to all of them, but you can see right up here, it gouges a bit easier, but I don't know if that was just because it happened to hit more sharp things or if it's this firm plastic is more sort of brittle, but it didn't seem to hold up as well as the medium or the soft against abuse, at least so far with this particular disc. So something to keep in mind. I'm not going to say that that's all firm Electron plastic, but for my limited experience with this disc, it does seem to chunk a little bit differently. I also wanted to show off, well, here's a regular Electron non-cosmic soft. I'm going to show one of the really, I have a couple of these really old pilots of a really old version of the Electron soft, and these things, you can see a massive difference in how the Electron plastic has changed. These things are like practically blowfly gumminess and softness, and that's not what you'll get from the newer runs. But these ones are great if you can find them, because these things will stop wherever they land or hit. If you hit a tree, it's going to just burn and then drop to the ground. If you hit the ground, it sort of just crumples and plops down to wherever it hits. Like, I love these for approach shots. This soft plastic. They're just enough stability to them that they don't feel weird when you release them. Kind of like a blowfly feels really weird if you try to throw it hard because you can just feel it flexing as it, kind of bends under the pressure. And I imagine those new Evolution or whatever those discs are that are made of that rubber blend that are meant to do the same thing. They also probably have that weird feeling when you release them where the disc just sort of flexes. These have just enough stability that doesn't feel too strange, but I don't throw them very hard just because it would feel not as good. So I usually bag one of these guys for approach shots, and then I bag the other soft, newer runs for putting. And yeah, that's sort of what I've been going with for the Electron. As far as how they fly, the Electron discs fly very, very straight. Even when they get beat up, I think I have one of the older soft stuff that is so beat up that it'll turn. But most of the other ones, even once they're beat up, they really don't turn a whole lot. They'll be just a very slight, gentle turn to the right, and then they sort of lose a lot of their fade and more or less just end up being a very straight disc. So yeah, if you're looking to do like a short tunnel shot and you have enough ceiling for it, I tend to throw a Pilot just because I know it's not going to turn or fade really. It'll just kind of go dead straight, and then when it hits the ground, it's going to stick no matter what kind of ground you're looking at. They don't tend to slide, so they're just really great for that controlled distance. Now going back to the premium discs, these guys, when you throw them, they are not going to turn. These things will withstand massive headwinds and will just be perfectly straight. Without that headwind, there will be a decent fade. I mean, it's gentle, but it's always going to be there, and it's definitely happening. It's not. I think I have one Proton that I got in my first mystery box that has been abused, and like my dogs use it as a chew toy almost. And that thing now will fly pretty much perfectly straight, but it took a lot of abuse to get there. All the rest of mine will fly straight, half the flight, and then just start slowly, gently sliding to the left. So they are really great if you're trying to do like a gentle hyzer in from the right to the left or something like that for a backhand. But honestly, for that sort of flight, the sort of hyzer approach, I tend to opt for an Envy. So I don't use my premium pilots all that much. I do bag ones still. Just occasionally it comes in handy where I just want something a little bit slower. Or I do really like them for forehand for whatever reason. I can forehand them a lot better than I can forehand an Envy for upshots or whatever. But really, most of the time, if I'm throwing a Pilot, it's going to be the Electron plastic. The premium ones they look really cool. I love all the stamps and the colors and the plastics, but the flight's just not what I'm looking for, and kind of overlaps with my other discs that I like. But if you don't have another disc that's already doing that for you, they are a great option. And they do have a ton of glide and a lot of distance control because they're so slow and they'll stick where they land. Yeah, so when I'm using the Pilot, like I said, generally it's Electron plastic, and I'm usually not driving with it. Every once in a while there's a hole that seems like the perfect disc for it, but most of the time I use these things for standstill upshots. Absolutely love them for it. You just give them a little nose up, floaty, backhand bid at the basket, and you'll almost always have a run at the basket, and it will settle within 15-20 feet of the basket for an easy comeback putt. It's great. I never worry about running a basket now with these things because they're so accurate, and they don't go anywhere once they hit where they're supposed to. So that's primarily what I use these discs for, and I do that shot a lot. they're also kind of nice for getting out of trouble if you got to do a little forehand, shot out of the woods. They will float their way to the basket so nicely. You can just shape them any which way you want, and they just always seem to land nice and flat and soft. So yeah, that's when I'm throwing. That's primarily the shots that I'm throwing with it. Otherwise, I use them as my primary putter, and when it comes to putters, it doesn't really matter inside of Circle One. A putter's a putter. You could be using a zone, or you could be using a spin or something. It doesn't really matter. It's feel. However the disc feels in your hand, that's what's important. But once you get outside of Circle One, that's where you really start to notice how your putter works. And I used to putt with the Envies, the Electron Envies, which I really liked. In Circle One, they felt comfortable. I was making a lot of putts. But Circle Two, I always felt like I really had to push to get them there, because the Envy just isn't a very glidey disc. At least not when you're putting with it. They tend to drop pretty fast, and they are overstable, so they tend to hyzer out pretty quick. And so I had kind of switched to proxies for a little while because they wouldn't hyzer out as much at Circle 2, but they still didn't have any glide, so they just sort of, I felt like I had to give it 100% to get it there every time, and that just ruins the form of, my putting. But when I started playing with the pilots are so glidey that I felt like I could get the disc there from anywhere in Circle 1 or Circle 2 with almost no effort, and it just felt almost as comfortable as my Envy, to the point where they basically just pushed all the other discs out, and it was like, well, I'll throw Envies and I'll putt pilots, Circle 1 and Circle 2, and that's sort of where I've landed today. And I've had great success with it. I'm not going to claim that the pilot's a great putter, because I think that's so little to do with the disc and so much more to do with your comfort level and your skills, that you can pick pretty much whatever you want and get used to it. A disc's a disc, in my opinion, for putting. But I really like them. I think they're comfortable. They do have a micro bead. I don't even know if you can see it on the video really, but it's practically, you can't tell. Like, if I have people who hate beads have thrown my Envies and my pilots, which both have micro beads, and they can't even tell. So if you are completely averse to beads, consider trying one anyway, because I'm pretty sure it won't be the obnoxiously noticeable bead, because I'm not a huge fan of a big bead either. I mean, I used to throw wasps and comets and stuff, and those have pretty massive beads, and yeah, this is nothing like that. You can barely tell. But yeah, I think that's all of the sort of useful information I have on the pilot. I want to hear more what you guys have to say about the pilot. I know there's a lot of people that have been throwing them since they came out, and it's a very strong cult following. But if you have any cool stories, some great shots, I mean, I've made some of the best shots ever with these discs. It's just so nice for up shots. I should say straight up shots where you're just going right at the basket. So yeah, if you have anything interesting to add, or cool stories about the pilot, or if you even have some really cool stamps, I'd love to see them. Otherwise, I'm gonna probably put out some more content here hopefully soon. I'd love to do the Hex once I have some more time with it, sort of as a preview. I'm loving it. But yeah, that's really the only thing that I have currently on my plate. I have a whole backlog of stuff that I'd like to do, but I don't know if we'll have time to do it in the near future. But if you're interested in catching that stuff, feel free to subscribe, and yeah, we'll catch you in the next one.